Good morning, it is that time again. Friday for the little snippet video of what's going on in the kitchen this week. And actually this week is chili powder. So chili powder to make in itself is dead simple. You dry the chili, put it in a spice grinder or even a pestle and mortar if you've got the patience for it, grind it up into a powder and voila, you have chili powder. And chili powder is something that you buy as a kind of a generic tin of chili powder from the supermarket or spice shop or wherever you're getting it from. But it was a couple of years ago, I was growing hot lemon chilies, which are a really fantastic bright yellow chili. And I was like, well, maybe I'll just make some hot lemon or lemon ají, same chili, chili powder, just because it would be yellow and that would be fun. And that is when I had the revelation that variety specific chili powders really brings out the individual flavour of the different chilies. And now, although I do tend to do one kind of generic one at the end of the year when I don't have enough of each of the individuals, and it's just a bit of a mishmash, generally now, every year, I make the chilies into their own powders and it is a revelation, I tell you. So what I've got left from last year's chilies, I've got this little tiny bit of the hot lemon left, and I'd say so far, this is my favourite. In terms of it tasting so different from your standard shop-bought chili powder, it is zesty and fresh and just beautiful and delicious and a great colour and all the things you want out of a homemade chili powder. Love it. So that's hot lemon, which is a lemon ají, same, and they're also called lemon drop chilies, all the same chili. Last year I made some, this is my generic one from last year, so this has got a mixture of hot lemon, bhut, which was blooming hot, and Champion. Now, it was quite interesting because Champion had almost no heat whatsoever, and obviously the bhut was really fiery. Both of them are red, so you come out with a really kind of bog standard looking but deeply flavoursome chili powder. I also had some orange habaneros, which I made this chili powder out of, and this one was my cayenne pepper. Cayenne peppers are incredible to make chili powder from. In fact, I have actually got some over here. So these are actually quite short. The cayennes that I'm growing at the moment are about this sort of size. They're currently green because mine have not ripened up yet, but they go, you know, this kind of style. And I've got a couple of little tiny ones that I picked earlier in the year and they've gone red here. I would say with chilies that although they do ripen once you've taken them off the plant, it's not quite like tomatoes. Tomatoes can develop flavour off the plant. Personally, I find chilies that ripen or change colour off the plant just don't have the same oomph. So I've been picking these and using them green because I'm not entirely sure that they're going to go red this year. But still, that is a whole nother matter. The thing about the cayennes that make them so brilliant for chili powder, not only are they just a fantastic tasting chili, but they are very, very thin. So if I just take one of these little ones that I took off, can you see how I haven't had this in the dryer at all? I haven't split it open. It's just been sat on the kitchen table. and it's almost completely dry. And that's because the walls of the chilies are really, really thin, which makes it make really, really good chili powder because it dries so easily. I'd say the hot lemon are about an intermediate in terms of them being easy to dry. They're much fatter walled than these chaps, so they do take a bit of time, and I always put them in the dryer because I find if I dry them just naturally out on the kitchen table, they lose a bit of their colour. And the flavour that you get from drying them in the dryer is just, wow, it's just fantastic. So a little bit like, if you watched my video last week, which was about basil, but I was also talking about drying sage in the dryer. Sage is another one that will just dry quite happily, you know, hung out in the kitchen. But the flavour that you get from drying it quickly in the dryer, you just preserve an extra layer of flavour that is just a whole nother level of dried herb. Anyway, same is true with chilies. So the hot lemon will dry on its own out, but I've always put it in the dryer. So I set these chilies off 3 days ago. They have been busy on about 60, just ing away in the kitchen for about 3 days. I'm gonna go initially to the hot lemons. So these are my hot lemon chilies that are now dry. Can you see how bright that colour is? Sorry, quick excursion. So this is now a fully dried chili and it's maintained that incredible colour. This one is one that is drying on its own, not intentionally, but it's just been left on the kitchen table. And it is going dry, but it's losing some of the vibrancy as it goes. That is, whew. As you can see, it's a fork shape. This is not natural. When I'm drying chilies that have a slightly fatter wall. So when I'm talking about the wall, I'm talking about the thickness of the actual flesh of the chili. You know, like a bell pepper, when you cut into it, it's got a big fat wall of flesh behind the skin. And some chilies, you cut into them, there's barely anything. Well, the thinner they are, the easier they dry. These are about medium on that front, on the chili kind of side. And they do take a little bit of time. So what I do is I cut them straight down the middle. I don't break the top, so they're still attached like that. And I just cut them straight down the middle. It just helps them dry out so much faster. But you don't lose any of the seed because it's just been cut straight down. Can you see the seed is still in there? If you cut it off at the top, they tend to all crumble and fall apart. So I have got 2 layers of these, and they are totally dry. They are ready to go in the spice grinder. I'm going to do that now. So my little spice grinder is different from my whizzer that I was using last week. You can see it's got a different inside here. It grinds up beautifully much smaller quantities of stuff. So if you're doing a spice mix for an individual recipe or whatnot, you can put everything in there and you can grind it from whole spices, you know, like cumin seeds, and you can make ground cumin powder out of it and stuff. Whereas if you put cumin seeds in a blitzer like I was using last week, they just kind of whiz around and get hot, and then that's the end of it. They don't form a really nice powder. So this powders properly. I'm going to put my hot lemons straight in whole like this and just nip off that top. It really doesn't matter if a bit of it goes in. It's not an issue. But can you see how they just crumble? That is when you know they're dry. There's no bend in them, there's no flex, there's nothing. I'm going to fill this up and whiz it, and then we'll have a look at the incredible colour at the end. Now, this is where you want to be really careful. It's not so bad with something like a lemon drop because they're not enormously hot. But if you do this with a really serious chili and then you whip that lid off, it is like a chemical attack in the house, I can tell you. So rather than tipping it straight into a jar, I tend to put it straight out onto kitchen roll first, or you know, greaseproof paper or something, so I can check that it's all ground up really nicely, and then I can just tip it into my jar rather than trying to shuffle it in from the spice grinder. So let's have a look at this colour. So I've let this settle a bit now, and it shouldn't have an enormous plume when we lift up. Just don't breathe in too heavily. Look at the joy of that. Wow. Look at the colour of it. Is that not unbelievable colour? And okay, so you don't want to be taking a massive deep breath because it will, you know, get you at the back of the throat, but that smell. It's at this point when you realise that a chili pepper is not just a generic chili. Sometimes when you are just trying chilies and your heat tolerance isn't wild, like some of these guys who just chew the chilies. Whew, I am not that person. I like things hot, don't get me wrong, but I find when you eat chilies like that, what you get from it is more the heat, and it kind of blocks out what the chili pepper actually tastes like. But when you make these powders from them, you do get the heat, but you also get this incredible aroma, and all the other flavours just seem to come to the fore. Anyway, I am well chuffed with that. How beautiful. Now that is one that I've made before, but this year I've got a new chili to try out making chili powder with, and it's called Sugar Rush Peach, and that's what's in the bottom of here. So that is what these guys are. So you see they're considerably larger than the hot lemons. I've got one here before it was dried, but this is a teeny tiny one. I don't know why I saved a really small one to show you, but imagine that, but bigger. That's what they look like. So really pale, very, very pretty colour. And I've done exactly the same thing. These are slightly fatter than the hot lemons. So I was thinking they were going to take a little bit more time to dry, but actually it's been the 3 days and they're proper crunchy. So these are ready to blitz up. Yeah, thicker wall. Very, very tasty chili. Really, really nice. A similar sort of heat to hot lemon, I would say. They're not blow your head off. But I've actually got 2 types of Sugar Rush Peach growing this year. Both of the seed sets came from JB. But one of them is Sugar Rush Peach Stripey. And look how stunning that is. Is that not so beautiful? So imagine this, but that size, because this is a midget. But they're kind of a similar, they look the same. But this one has developed these unbelievable, beautiful, big stripes along them, and I love it. The only thing I would say is that my stripy plant is a lot less prolific than my not stripy one. So I'm just eating these fresh. And I'm making the chili powder out of these. Well, I haven't yet. I'm about to make the chili powder out of these. Right, let's have a go. And I'm not going to put the hot lemon into a jar just yet. I'm going to leave it on the kitchen paper so we can compare colours. Okay, let's do that again. Can you hear how hard that is? They are absolutely rock solid. I'm really pleased with that actually, because I was a bit unsure as to how well these were going to dry out. Seems they're just so much bigger. Bigger in body, but also bigger in their thickness. They're real chunky peppers. The smell of that is amazing. It actually smells an awful lot hotter than, oh God, it's gone right up my nose. It actually smells an awful lot hotter than the hot lemon. Even though as fresh chilies, they don't appear to be. Oh, whew, that has cleared my sinuses. So I'm not sure that the colour contrast is showing up that clearly on the camera, but that is a really beautiful pale. It looks so much more yellow on the camera. That's really funny. This is proper yellow, and that's like a pale chalky peach colour. Stunning. So I'm going to put them into jars, and I'm very happy with that Sugar Rush Peach actually. Do I want to taste it? I'm going to taste it. That's hot. But not too hot. Much, much fruitier than when you eat it on its own fresh, because the heat comes a little bit later. You've got a lot of perfume from it. That is delicious. Yeah, that is a success, chaps. So in terms of this same technique, you can do this with obviously so many different things, but actually last year, one of the things I really enjoyed doing it with was green pepper, so not hot peppers at all, rather than unripe. So like this cayenne, although it's unripe, that's still going to be quite hot. And if I dried that out and made chili powder out of it, it would be a nice fresh green colour, but it would be still with quite a bit of heat. Last year I grew some really not hot chilies. They were still chilies, they weren't peppers, but they had no heat to them whatsoever, and they were green. And I picked some early because we just didn't have the summer to ripen them. And I made this kind of green pepper powder out of them, and that was so delicious. It was the first one to go. I don't have any of it to show you because I made it as a bit of a kind of, well, what am I going to do with all of these green non-hot peppers that I've got? Made the powder. Just stirred in to a pasta sauce or whatever, you got this real like lively hit of that fresh green capsicum flavour, you know, so without the sweetness that you get with the red ones, but the body, it was absolutely delicious. So yes, I am going to carry on making my chili powders, and I highly recommend that you do too, because they are nothing like your bog standard chili powder that you get in the supermarket. There's a whole world of variety specific chili powders out there to change the world with. Was that melodramatic? No, it wasn't melodramatic. It's true. It's absolutely true. Just be careful on the whole breathing in bit. Excuse me.